Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 66 of Tavern Talks. Tonight is an exciting night because we have not one, but two guests from the Dungeon Boys with a Z. Making sure we get that because my phone, when I've been trying to send out notifications to everybody, auto corrects me and it drives me nuts. So, telling you, I've probably auto went back into Discord channels for the last while, and I was like, crap, it's an S. Fix that. Fix that. Fix that. So, but no. So what Tavern Talks is this is a weekly stream where we bring guests on and we talk about what they're doing in the world of D&D and how what they're doing might help you in your next game. So tonight, before I continue to blabber on for another 25 to 30 minutes, I'm going to introduce our two Dungeon Boys. So if you want to introduce yourselves, and we'll get on with the conversation.
Yeah, sure. I'm Dylan. I play Temple on the Dungeon Boys, VOIZ. We're a Dungeons and Dragons podcast. Current campaign, Stardust Echoes, is a sci-fi fantasy homebrew super fun thing, and our lovely DM Justine gives all of us a wide breadth to be creative and ridiculous, and hopefully we can pass on some of those tips to you.
And I'm Anthony. I play Grayson in the same show and campaign that Dylan plays Temple. And you can find the Dungeon Boys on social media at the Dungeon Boys BOIZ. I think that's just kind of standard across both like Twitter and Instagram. We also have a community Discord that you can join if you feel so inclined.
Lots of good memes and art.
Lots of good memes and art. We also have a Patreon, so if you feel inclined by the end of the show to still want to be interested in our show, donate. And that's my shameless plug.
Mine too.
Yeah. Hey, we all have D&D. Yes, is an amazing thing, but we all have to support each other. So yeah, definitely go check out their Patreon. What they're offering as a stream or not a stream, but as a podcast is great. Their stories are inclusive or exciting, and I love the mix you guys are doing between sci-fi and fantasy. I think that's a really cool genre that a lot of people don't touch very much on. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that because I've only had a chance to listen to one episode so far because I swear there is 1,000 D&D podcasts coming out in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And they're all great. Like, that's the scary part. They're all great, but there's also only 24 hours a day. And that doesn't count, the time you have to spend with family and friends and work and all those other things that you have to do.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, work can change. If you want to fund this young man to go do this full time, I will make sure we do more of this. But as of right now, no, the full time job has to be there. So there is that. So I don't care who answers this question. I always ask all of my guests 3 questions. They're very simple questions, but they kind of get the whole story going. So whoever wants to answer first, how long have you been playing TTRPGs? We won't even say Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is important, but TTRPGs in general.
I'll go first. D&D since I've been like 12. TTRPGs probably for longer. Even though probably at the time I was playing them, I didn't know the term TTRPG or really like what it was I was playing.
So can you elaborate that a little bit?
Maybe.
It might be similar to my experience. That's why I'm curious. So
yeah, I mean, so like when I started playing D&D proper, I started playing at 4th edition, which I feel like a lot of people my age that kind of feels like the same kind of edition most people started at, either like 3.5 or 4. But before that, I mean, like Pathfinder, is a TTRPG that I dabbled in before getting into 4th edition, without really knowing the difference. I played like the old Cyberpunk TTRPG game that was published back in, like, I want to say the 80s. You know, like a long time ago, with some family. You know, when I was probably too young to be doing that. So I also feel like a lot of just kind of like being a kid and playing make-believe really just kind of dovetails into playing like TTRPGs, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons, whether it's, you know, any of the Powered by Apocalypse systems, you know, Cyberpunk, whatever. It's very much, I think, in a very broad sense, everybody has been playing TTRPGs since they were old enough to have an imagination.
I agree.
I would agree with that too. Yeah. I got my start, I think, in sometime in middle school. I gotta assume maybe I was 12 or 13, somewhere in there as well, playing Battle for Middle Earth. That one was super fun. I was more interested in painting the minis than actually playing the game, but I loved like painting. I had a company of dwarves that I painted my own like color of you know, their own sort of colors and things, and they were my special set of filthy dwarves, and it was so fun. Yeah, and my buddy's older brother was just bothered by that I customized the dwarves and then also didn't know how to play the game, so he really didn't have anyone to play with in our small neighborhood. So
people can do stuff like that. Like, truthfully, I don't think it's something that I would be really worried about doing consistently, because I don't know, there's something about customizing minis specifically to something that you're actually doing is very cool in my opinion. So Warhammer just came out with that Voltan, I think, set where they're bringing back the squats. I've been holding out on buying Warhammer, but man, that set.
I around the same time I started playing 4th edition, my friends and I got really into Warhammer 40k. So like, as a bunch of like middle schoolers who had no money to begin with, had even less money when we started buying armies. But yeah, it was very much like, I played Necrons. I had a Necron army, and like, they're just like metal robots, and that was like uninteresting to me from a color palette perspective, so I painted them all to make them look like they had like white ceramic armor on, and I was just like,
so they all look like stormtroopers.
Like stormtroopers or like robotic skeletons was like what I was trying to go for. But
kind of like the Tau, honestly. It sounds like the Tau. They're like ceramic, like armor.
Yeah. But I like the Necrons because they had a 50% chance of coming back to life after they died, and I like to not lose at games, and that felt like a good option for me.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons is a little rough for that, because I mean, you're technically never losing, but you're never really winning fully, so it's just like, you know, it's what it is. I mean, unless you have those weird dungeon masters, right? If you've got the one that's really after you, and then you beat him, and you're like, "Ha, I got you finally," but very rare. And
I want to say like in Stardust Echoes, the only way we win, I think, is Arland, our warlock in the campaign. His version of winning is just like stumping our dungeon master, because he just takes like an immense amount of chaotic joy in doing that.
Oh man, yeah, because his character is you know, the archaeologist, so he loves magic items and loopholes and magical rules and just DM kryptonite.
DM
pretty
kryptonite
fun.
Right there. That's that rule lawyer, min-max loophole guy. And those are rough sometimes to deal with. I'll tell you that. I've been doing. I have literally, on my Tuesday night game, I have literally an entire group of those people. It is like, I love them to death. They're an amazing group of people, but they come up with the craziest of ideas, and they're like, yeah, but if I do this and I do this, then I do this, then it works. And I was like, well, crap.
Because I guess synergies you'd never planned for. Yeah. Like, how does a rope behave through a portal, kind of thing? Like, is it dangling through it, or straight out, or, you know, just ridiculousness.
I think the current season of Stranger Things finally answered that question for all of us. So.
Right. How's the rope work? It just kind of dangles.
It just kind of hangs. It's
just sort of there. Yeah.
What is that? I mean, they kind of explained that in. And I had a buddy of mine use this. It wasn't even this group. It was a different group. But is it the Ranger or the Rogue? I'm trying to remember what he's playing at the time, because I'm running 3 to 4 different campaigns weekly sometimes. So brain sometimes I get all crazy. rope trick is the spell, and literally you pull yourself up into a hole that nobody can get. It's like a demi-plane, and then you can pop in and out. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to toss it on the ceiling. And I was like, you didn't just do that, did you? He's like, yeah, you know, I just crawl up the rope, pop out, shoot, pop back in. I was like, you're the most annoying player I've ever played with. Like, I'm playing whack-a-mole over here, and I'm trying to figure out how to do it properly.
But the opposite of that, though, are the DMs that I'm more used to, which are the ones that'll just be like, yeah, okay, sure, yeah, you do that wild, ridiculous thing, or better yet, when they throw something that's way too steep at the players, they come up with some of their own nonsense to get rid of that threat faster. Like banishing your own demon thing or whatever it is. Just
I saw a TikTok this week that scared the living daylights out of me, but I so want to play that BBEG. His name's Gab, I think, but he's playing like almost this psychopathic Joker cleric character, and he's just, the way the skit was is he's just sitting there and he's like, oh, I'll just wait for you to resurrect them, I'm not done playing. And I was like, it's like, this is terrifying. I love it.
Yeah.
like, oh, everybody's dead but you. Oh, you can res them. I'll just sit here and wait. And it's like, what does this mean? I'm so scared.
Horrific. Sociopaths.
Yeah, like I was instantly, my brain's going, okay, how can I work this into a campaign? Because this is insanity. You know, either that or the wizard who you're battling, and they go, oh, I'm gonna cast Cure Wounds, counterspell. Wait,
that's
what?
That's
counterspelling healing.
That's how I am as a DM. I am absolutely a DM who counterspells like Cure Wounds or any kind of healing.
Cure Wounds, Greater Restoration, banishment, random
Good
things like that.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure how I play.
I love and hate those players and game masters, because I'm like, wow, you are ruthless. But you know.
Well, I'm also the DM who has had like a wizard BBEG when they were like at like 10 hit points left, threw themselves into the negative energy plane as a fuck you to the players, or the fuck you to the party, and then a fucking Night Stalker comes out to take its place, full health, full power, because that's what happens when you go into the negative energy plane. A Night Stalker comes to take your place. And then it's just like part 2 of the battle, bitches. Let's go.
Run!
Came with
that's when you explain to people very early in a game.
Second health bar.
Like I said, that's when you explain to people very early in a game, running is an okay option. Like,
no, for sure. And that's what I try to encourage, where it's just like, not every scenario you need to win to succeed to move on. Like, you can 100% bail out of scenarios. You can 100% like, you know, a lot of people think D&D is just like, you need to beat the challenge to move on. You don't. You can circumvent it. You can go backwards, and going backwards is still going forward from a narrative perspective. So like, I don't know, it's a story.
It can be. Otherwise, a DM who prepped a linear thing is going to be bothered. Like, oh, they doubled back. Okay, time to put the line this way now.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that yes and no, because if you think about in a BBEG mentality or a concept, right? No matter if I go backwards or forwards, the BBEG is still going to advance whatever his plan is. Yeah. It's just you might not see it the same way the next time you run into it.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing for game masters with a BBG showing up early and showing them how powerful he is terrifying to players, but at the same time, I've learned there's such an urgency developed on those players then, where they're like, oh no, we need to go back and kill this guy. We just got to get a little more strong, like a little stronger. So they don't wait around as much and do random things if they're really worried that there's a guy sitting there building his, undead army or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Gives it gravity and grounds it. Yeah, I think it's important to show kind of the scale of things at play, especially when you're doing, giant world building stuff. Mm-hmm. You have, sometimes hundreds of hours sunk into all the pre-planning and all the stuff, and then you drop players in it, and they just kind of fart around and don't really do anything.
I want to build a tavern. Okay.
Guess this is a tavern sim now.
This is a tavern
Sweet.
sim now.
You'll
and
never learn
then
about this ancient
the
culture.
ancient evil is
and-
going to
yeah.
tear through this place in about 7 episodes, but you know.
Yeah. Well, that's as when I DM, that's what I try to like, just like above the table conversations with the players, like session 0. It's just like, you can choose to interact with anything in this world, but just because you don't interact with it doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Right.
Like, stuff happens whether you interact with it or not, and you interacting with it can potentially change the outcome for good or ill. And I just like, I have a notebook filled with what I call clocks, which is just like me ticking down check marks until a big thing happens. If
Yeah.
like okay, well, here's the thing the players need to interact with, whether they do it successfully or not. Like, that's either going to slow down the clock or advance a clock. They don't know what these clocks are. They don't even know these clocks exist. But it's for me to keep track of like when things happen,
Right.
or if they happen, based on player intervention.
Especially
So,
big events, right? Like if you're planning a giant story out,
yeah,
and you've got multiple pieces of that story that are slowly starting to shift the way that the story needs to go, and then you're like, well, I'm just going to go do this entire side quest that works with this character. Cool. You need to learn that too, because that's an awesome thing to develop and to work through. But either when it's finished or while it's still happening, this is still being advanced, right? Like this is still something that you're dealing with without you knowing.
So is part of the motivation with that to instill like FOMO, like fear of missing out? Like
not necessarily FOMO, but just I want the world to feel
Alive.
real and lived in, right? And part of that is just like, hey, like stuff happens. The other part of that is just like your choices have consequences, and consequences can be good or bad. And if there's like 2 or 3 different things you could do at a time, you need to choose what you're going to do, and just like know that whatever you choose, something else is going to happen because you didn't choose that. And that's not me punishing you. That's just me letting you know, like, this is how the world works. You can have 3 different things, and you need to pick the best one and hope that, you know, that's the right choice. There is no right choice. There's never a right choice. There's just choices. But, you know, to just feel like, I guess in a larger sense, it's also for me to give the players agency over the story.
Right.
Where I provide the framework for it, but their choices propel the narrative in a direction.
Right.
So they feel like they have authorship and ownership over the story they're telling as well.
That's a good side of it to bring up, because the initial idea of having clocks running made me anxious.
Sure.
If I were a player in that world, I'd be anxious. Like from the drop, like if I knew that was your DM style, I'd be like, oh, well, I got to start running and like doing things as fast as I can.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, where it's just like sometimes like in game, they'll kind of uncover information, and then I'll be like, okay, yeah, above the board, this is what you just discovered. Here's this clock, you know, here's this clock that's been ticking down since session 1, you know?
Yeah.
You guys finally know what this clock is. It's not an unknown clock to you now. Now you're aware of it, and aware of, like, you know, what
That'd be
can
a fun way to
happen
spring onto people too. Like not in a bad way, but like give them that feeling that this process or this focus has been working. It's behind the scenes since episode 1. So like, people finally click in or see this coming, and they go, well, when did we start realizing this was a problem? I hinted at it here, and 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 nobody looked at it, right? Nobody took that opportunity to go that direction and even investigate a little bit of it. So now when it's being sprung on you, it wasn't sprung on you, it's just you're finally realizing that it's happening.
Yeah, I'm thinking
and
like that. Sorry, please.
No, and I think one of the modules, one of the only models, truthfully, I believe that does that right is Curse of Strahd. I think that's kind of the same feel that they do for him. Is it's like Strahd is there. Strahd is there no matter where you're at in the world. His plans are continuing to advance of him becoming more of the lord of, you know, the domain and blah 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 blah, and who he's looking for and all that. But if you're not taking those hints and you're going down the other pathways of inside stories, it's no different than he's still advancing. It's just how he's advancing at that point.
Yeah.
I was going to say, with that sort of one of the problems I have DMing is having NPCs also feel grounded in the world. So when a clock runs down on an event that characters or the players may not have interacted with or clued into, they talk to an NPC in a new town, and the NPC's like, "Hey, did you hear about that volcano eruption? Like, that was wild," or it's just like,
yeah.
And then it's like, oh, that's a thread, and like, or just goings on, having them have ammo for banter or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Having those interactions with NPCs, I love that point. Truthfully, I mean, I do it every once in a while, but I don't do it enough probably because I don't have the time to develop that much all the time. But giving those big lore hints, maybe this is a traveling shopkeeper or somebody who has ventured out to get specific items so that he can come back and sell them. Well, he's then traveling back and forth to another town. Maybe it's a town right next to where you're at, which then you can then hint, like, while you're talking, I was in blah, blah, blah just a week ago. Did you hear that this happened? Like, it could be something big or it could be something super small, but it still makes that world feel it's always moving. Yeah. It's never stopping.
The fun thing I clued into recently, I've been playing Edge of the Empire, the Star Wars, basically D&D.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but one of the fun things that we realized that works well if you flub a persuasion roll or a seeking information, whatever. I guess in D&D it'd be like an insight check or perception. If you fail that roll, you get misinformation. It's not like, oh, he doesn't tell you anything. It's like, oh, he says, oh yeah, the volcano, I think that was a pipe bomb that went off in the tavern the next town over. I don't think it was a volcano.
Yeah.
And just like mislead them and lead them down a the wrong rabbit hole. And so the next time they bonk into an NPC, they come equipped with this misinformation, and then just compounding interest on goofy conversations and interesting directions. I like that kind of thing.
So before I get too far into this, and then we're going to go back to our questions, of course. I want to
answer.
Sure. I think is it Kaon? I want to say crayon, but it's not crayon. Kaon 7970's question before, because otherwise we're going to get way down here. So how do you fix when the campaign starts to go off the rails?
I don't, because that's still like part of the story. I guess it depends on what you mean by off the rails, right? Like if your adventuring party is just deciding to just be murder hobos and just kill everything they interact with, that's one version of off the rails.
Yeah.
And that's less of how do you fix that, and that's more of like a sit down with your party and just have a conversation with them, like, hey, what story are we trying to tell here? What are we trying to do as a table? Because here's the thing, as a player, it's very easy to be like, oh, all of this is for me and this is a sandbox for me to have fun in. The DM is just as much a player in the game as you are as a player character, and they need to be having fun too. Otherwise, it's going to stop being fun for everybody.
Correct.
So if your DM's not having fun, then you as a player are probably not putting your best effort into the campaign. And that's something I think Dungeon Boys we've talked about a couple of times, not as like a bad thing, but just as like if we're doing one shots or like figuring out fun Twitch stuff to do, we talk about like what's the tone, what's the silliness level, what's the seriousness level, so we can all feel fairly prepped for what the game is going to be, and so the DM can have a chance to have fun and tell a story they want to tell.
Yeah, for one shots, that's pretty easy because you can say, okay, we're just going to hang out and play a game today and get this thing wrapped up as best we can in this one session, and it's going to be like this. But for a long form campaign, things change over time. You might have sat down with a set of expectations which may have changed because your players are stressed from life, or your DM is in a weird place, or things change. So yeah, the answer I think to any potential conflict with D&D or just life in general is communicate.
Yeah.
Communicate. Yeah. Like, hey, this is not what I had in mind, guys. You're just killing all these NPCs I throw at you. Are you okay?
Yep.
If the answer is well, no, and then it's like, okay, well, do we want to?
You're allowed to not be okay too. Please do believe that you come to a table with a game master, especially if it's because I have a bit of a different feel because not only do I play with friends, but I play with other people. Like I professionally game twice a week for groups all over the world sometimes. And personally, those I'm more concerned about than my friends, because my friends I will instantly pick up on because you're always around them, you understand what they're going through. But truly, you're right. If you're coming to the table with these anxieties or stress levels that's going on outside of the game, and you can't get that out of your head, it's going to affect the game, and that's going to affect everybody around at that point. So having those conversations quickly and knowing they're out there would definitely help a ton.
And games like this are, people are coming to a table and, kind of being vulnerable with each other. And especially the first time I played D&D, it's kind of a vulnerable thing. Like we're playing make-believe together. I'm going to come up with something and see how everyone else reacts. So yeah. Tread lightly with each other, but communicate.
I think too, Dylan, kind of going back to what you said about like longer form campaigns, how do you kind of get a game back on the rails? And I 100% communicate. That's the correct answer. But also, just like as a DM, just also do temperature checks, check on how your players are feeling about what's currently happening in the story, individually check on like, hey, how do you feel like your character is growing? Is there a particular way you want your character to grow? And just making the players feel engaged and making their backstories feel engaged is a good way to kind of prevent things from going off the rails, because then everybody's like excited to participate in an active way. And I think too, just like a game I don't DM, but I've been a player in for about 3 years now. It's a very close-knit group of friends, and we've gone. We started playing pre-pandemic and have been playing, through the pandemic, through all the highs and lows of that. And when there's just been like terrible things happening in the world, and we're all just like not wanting to engage in the main super serious story, like our DM will have a conversation with us, or she'll pick up on it and then just be like, hey, this session we're going to do like, in canon a story, but like a silly, like we did a whole session where it was essentially like a D&D version of Cooking Mama. Because our characters in game own a bar, and we own a tavern. It was like one of those things where like all the staff called in sick, so we're the ones who now we're the adventurers, but we're the ones who now have to staff the bar for the night. And it's familiar. Shenanigans ensue, and that was a reprieve from the super intense main story that's happening to make us all laugh for an evening.
And sometimes it's worth it. So especially if it's not a table that, like personally for me, if it's not a table that's paying me to do this, like I'm coming to this as, and now let me quick caveat on that, because I have a lot of people ask me this question. They're not paying me to win. Please don't think that. They know that they can die in this game. Because I had somebody tell me that, well, are they gonna like ask for their money back if you kill them? I was like, well, if they do, they didn't read the expectations, because it's a possibility. But you're right. It is sometimes especially when you're playing with friends and you go, you know what, maybe we just don't pick up tonight. Maybe we go play a board game. Maybe we go play cards. Whatever it is, we just all want to hang out and be around each other, because it's the pandemic and we can't be around anybody else because this sucks, or whatever it is. But it's definitely something that I would look at, and it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be the main story. You can throw a character to get now with D&D and D&D Beyond and other random online tools. I can make a character in 2.5 minutes. Like we had a show for a while on another friend of mine's podcast, or on another friend of mine's stream, called Roll With It Anyway. And it was literally, he would grab 4 or 5 guests from other streams, we'd log in, we'd roll a d4 to see who got what character, and we hadn't even seen the characters until we logged in. And I was like, and I'm supposed to stream this? Like, I know nothing about what's going on, and you're building characters immediately, and it's but you got that out of it, right? You got the laughing, the funny, the silly, a lot of times.
It's a good improv prompt,
It's great improv prompts, but it was a lot of fun, and it got you out of that seriousness, because a lot of my games are extremely serious, drama-filled, diving into backstories and working through problems that their characters have been developing for weeks or months at a time. And sometimes people just don't want to do that night.
Yeah.
Because it can be brutal.
Yeah.
I don't know the last time your characters have died, but that's the most dramatic scene I've seen most parties take.
Oh yeah.
So
the other big game I'm a player in, just last session, I mean, one of our player characters is probably dead. They're in the process of getting their mind eaten by a mind flayer wizard, and the mind flayer wizard teleported away with them. It's just like, well, shit.
Roll for a new friend.
Yeah, basically. But it is very much like the best advice for kind of like balancing the super heavy dramatic stuff I gotten was from that same DM who's been running my 3-year campaign now. And it's just like, it's okay to have that, but make sure that like for every like heart-pounding dramatic sob story moment, throw in a laugh. Like throw in like a reprieve, so not everything's just doom and gloom. Like, you know, you guys get through a really brutal, grueling adventure where somebody dies. Have a fun beach party episode. Like genuinely, like have a fun beach party episode, and like don't be afraid to like reward your players with like a cool, fun thing. You know,
there's so many cosmetic items out there that are just fun to have that you should definitely look into those when you're having those moments.
Yeah, lure your characters back on path.
Right.
Give them a carrot.
Or just
that's a sparkly cape. I want
or
that.
even like, you know, your players just got through the story arc where they had to hunt down a drow serial killer who had been killing people through the city, and it's like super dark and fucked up, and it's just like, next week it's the dinosaur race through the city. You guys took care of the serial killer. It's a little bit of downtime. You guys get to ride on the back of dinosaurs through the city now. And, and it's just like, it feels like such a weird tone shift, and it is, but it's also just like very baked
changes
into the
flow
world
of drama. Like it allows you to then kind of calm yourself down.
Yep.
Because that's one thing I had to learn as a game master, is how to work through that tension. Because like I said, I love to see them in intense moments. But putting a person, I'm not going to say a character, putting a person through that for too many episodes at a time can start to drain on them to a point where they're starting to not enjoy the game anymore.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn that very quickly to be like, okay, you know, this has to have, even if it's nothing more than me dropping a silly NPC in that's off the wire, not understand who he is type person, and he's giving them weird riddles to get, you know, magic dust out of his pocket, and it could be nothing more than sleep sand. It calmed the system down for a moment, so people can go, okay, I can breathe again, and then we can reattack the problem. That was actually something I did with a group, so I don't know why I did it. It literally came off the top of my head that night, but
it's great.
I could see everybody look that way.
Yeah, you need Boblin the Goblin sometimes to just come in and have a funny little voice and do a funny little dance, and then you can get back to whatever serious thing you're doing, you know?
Little whoopee cushion moment, yep.
Yeah, really, that's all it is. But, you know, when you see everybody go from this, like, really focused watch look to the giant smile, and they're laughing, or they're standing up for a second, and taking a moment of a break, and you're like, okay, everybody can take a deep breath now, and we can continue the crazy story that's been beating us down for the last 6 episodes. You know, it's but you're right, when you complete something amazing like a long arc like what you were talking about, giving that 1 to 2 episodes of them just to relax and chill can change the whole mentality of the game, because now they're doing what they want to do with extra money. And I mean, that's what, you know, those are the shopping episodes, those are the festival episodes, those are, you know, those
are my favorites.
You want to go you want to go buy a random pet to train for the next adventure out. I don't care. Go for it.
Yeah, it's the what's it, Stardew Valley. It's the Stardew Valley episodes, you know? Like, go tend your garden, you know? Go plant a tree, go start a bakery.
Right. And those are funny though, because a lot of times people will put a ton of time and energy into those. Like I've had a friend of mine, he was like, "Hey, I know you use Incarnate. Do you mind if I use your account for a night?" I said, "Why is that?" He's like, "Well, because we just bought this house and I want to furnish it." And I was like, "Are you serious?" So he went, took the entire week before the episode and sent it to me. He's like, "So I want to buy this, 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 this." And I was like, "Oh my God, you guys put way too much time and energy into this. I did not think this was going to happen." But we
learned
did.
About Incarnate. This is awesome.
Oh, Incarnate's great.
Oh my
Dude,
gosh,
it's so good.
You need to go.
I'm late to the
learn.
party. This is
Incarnate
rad.
is beautiful, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
I don't know if do you know anything about what's coming out for Incarnate? Because I'm super psyched.
I don't. I have a shared account I use with my other friend who DMs one of the games I'm in.
Yeah.
And
So Incarnate will have the room tool here in like 3 months.
Cool.
So I don't know if anybody knows what the room tool is. We got to play around with it at Gen Con this year while we were there. But the room tool in Dungeon Draft, which is another encounter map building tool, you can literally draw a box and it builds the walls for you and puts the ground floor in for you.
That's cool.
And then you can draw another box and it connects everything. And I'm just like,
Wow.
oh, I'm getting
That's
this with the amazing artwork that Incarnate has. I'm super psyched because it's going to make my map building so much faster.
I need to close this tab. I'm on stream. I need to pay attention.
Yeah, you're fine.
Oh my God.
No, Incarnate is a godsend for me because I've built, because a lot of my professional games, I run a customized version of a module because they want to play in a world that they know. A lot of times they'll come to me and they'll say, "I've seen, like the two I'm running right now, one is Tomb of Annihilation, one is Horde of the Dragon Queen. Two opposite sides of the world. And I really don't know a ton about Forgotten Realms, like the big lore of Forgotten Realms. I've read a couple of the books and I've done a lot of the Forgotten Realms stuff, but knowing the big lore, I'm not a big connection of it. I'm more into the actual, Lord of the Rings, which we talked about off stream. But so what I'll do then is I'll take that module and I'll start splicing it up, going, okay, this is how I think the characters are going to enjoy it the most, and cutting it back. But a lot of those don't have a ton of maps in them. They have some really good ones that you can use, but all the other ones have to be built. So I'm always in Incarnate going, okay, they described this type of an area this way, so let me see if I can create a 40 by 40 image for that. I will blow Dylan's mind if he hasn't heard of this one then yet.
Uh-oh.
So if you like Incarnate, go check out Dungeon Alchemist. Dungeon Alchemist is an AI driven map builder.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I don't
Still not sure what I think of this AI stuff happening lately, but
it's insanity. I just made this morning for AI and it is beautiful. Speaking of that,
I'm still on.
We're gonna start doing.
This is dope. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, we're gonna start doing a contest here. So keep out on all the social medias. We're gonna name the tavern. We're at episode 66, and the tavern's never been named. So as we start to build new intros and new overlays, we're getting ready to name the tavern. So if you have names, start sending them over through. We're gonna put up a poll on, or not a poll, but a questionnaire on Instagram. So go over, put your names of that one in, and we'll do a poll on a couple of the streams and on Instagram and tally them all together and see what we come up with. Don't make it a completely silly name, because I probably will throw it out because I can't do fully silly, but I can do somewhat silly.
That's going to be Tavern McTavern Face.
Yeah, like stuff like that. I was like, oh gosh, no. Like, and please don't name me like the Prancing Pony. Like, we already know that exists. I'm not doing it. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll let you guys in on a secret. I'm prepping a one shot for the Dungeon Boys, and it takes place at a tavern called the Woozy Goose. That one's taken. Can't use that one.
Can't use that one.
Just letting you know.
Matt, go away. We're not calling it the Sad Boy Assassin's Cafe.
That okay. Well,
It's not bad.
It's not bad.
It's not great.
They torture me.
It can be a lot worse.
It's one of my players, and I had built this amazing scene towards the end of a campaign or the end of an arc, and they were trying to figure out this puzzle, and I had these assassins drop into a hospital to take pregnant women away for a ritual that was happening that night, and I wasn't rolling higher than a 6 on anything, and these guys just wiped the floor. I mean, he kicked one out a window, and I was just like, these guys are supposed to be like skilled assassins, and you guys are just wiping the floor with them.
That name's good for the pub that they limped away to.
Yeah, I was so depressed on that one. I was like, wow, this is what we're going with tonight? Like, I was a defeated game master that night. I was like,
I've had those sessions as both a DM and as a player where I don't roll higher than 10 the entire night. So,
but no, we are trying to do a little bit of restructuring on the Tavern Talks. We've been doing it 66 episodes. I've learned a lot in almost 2 years. So, and we've gotten a lot of things from friends of ours. So I kind of want to do like a showcase, which is only like a 2-minute thing, but show off some of the crazy things that our community has sent me and things like that. And I also, like I said, if you're interested in this, and this goes out to the chat, Matt, this is the first time you're hearing this. Sorry, buddy. I know I'm doing the cat out of the bag thing again. But something I've been thinking about, and I want to give a shout out to Fairy Fire over on podcasts of any sort. They gave me the idea, is to have the guest bring a character to the tavern every week. And when they bring the guest to the tavern, there's going to be a donation box opened. And that donation box is only going to go up to $50. And all that's going to do is that's going to cover that week's artwork for that character done by our wonderful friend, Derek Stevens, who does amazing artwork. And he's going to drop that character, and anybody that night will get an actual link that will... an actual link that they'll be able to access later that week or whatnot. And you'll be able to go in and grab that character artwork for yourself. And then if you don't have that link, then of course it'll go up on our Patreon for, I think it'll be the $5 tier or higher, and you'll be able to access all the characters that have ever been designed through Tavern Talks. It's an idea. If you like the idea, just put a thing in the chat message so I know that it's a good idea. So, because I'm coming up with crazy things tonight. So,
I think it's a good idea, and
I think it's
on camera.
Yeah.
So my opinion should be listened to.
Yep. Our opinion, all of us on camera, our opinion means more than yours now.
All on camera have interests. And definitely, for everybody in here, check out the Woozy Goose hosted by Dylan on October 27th at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Are you guys hosting it on Twitch?
Yes.
Awesome.
Twitch.tv/The Dungeon Boys.
Slam that in our Discord so that we can come hang out with you guys as well to watch that.
It'll be fun.
I'm going to be playing like a washed up version of Hulk Hogan as like a tavern wrestler as entertainment.
It's the 27th. Oh, it's a Thursday. And it's next Thursday, so I don't have a game on Thursday.
I have prep to do.
Gotta make my character sheet still.
Curious question. How do you deal with one-shots? Curious.
I go tone backwards. So I think of the tone that I want to set. And then I think of a fun place for that tone or a fun set of places for that tone to take place. And then I just think of one big objective. And for each player, I give each of them one kind of side sort of objective that complements the character that they came up with. Because time's limited. You got, 2 to 4 hours.
Right, yeah, you've got to tell a single story that has to have an ending to it or it makes no sense, right?
Yeah, so if they beelined it, I try to pace it so that, if they were just gung-ho for the finish line, they could wrap it up in an hour. It's never going to take an hour. So I give everybody, a lead on one little side thing that they can do, and I make sure, and then the work of the one shot is to make sure that that side thing that they all go and do weaves back into the main idea. So, in a big long form campaign, splitting the party is, jokingly, it's the one thing you shouldn't do. In one shots, that's the first thing I do. I split them up. I make them focus on their own things, get them, interested, engaged, locked in. And then I have that little carrot that I'm leading them along, eventually point to the objective.
Nice.
And make sure that the tone is aligned the whole way.
I like it. It would be for a lot of my players, it would be very hard to get that finished in 3 hours. If I give everybody a carrot and try to get them all to tie into one shot,
little carrot,
be a hard one.
Just a small little carrot.
Small little carrot. That's a much more thought out, better answer than what I have.
I'm doing prep right now, so it's on top of the mind.
I haven't run. I've only run maybe like 2 one-shots ever. I might be doing one for the Dungeon Boys if we get to 50 Patreons on our Patreon.
Wow.
Or subscribers to our Patreon. So
awesome.
You can subscribe to our Patreon so if you want to see me run play that one.
But my very basic answer is just railroad them. Which
it really. So I have a very weird. Hold on, I broke something.
Okay.
This is how we do that. There we go. Fixed. I moved something around on my screen because I was trying to pull up your guys' Patreon and also pull up our own because we do have one and we're trying to move to Patreon. So if anybody is interested in supporting us, go hop over to our Patreon. We offer maps from the stories that we're doing. We'll be offering artworks as people buy them, and we also do sneak peeks, that kind of thing, and some polls. But no, our goal is to kind of move away from just using Twitch and allowing people to kind of watch it wherever they want to watch it, right? And offer a little bit of extra of a fund.
Yeah.
But no, definitely go support these guys. Go check out their Patreon. Get them to 50 because I want to see a one shot ran by Anthony. Sounds like a fun idea.
It will be canonical in the world of Stardust Echoes.
Okay.
So Justine is being very generous and giving me the reins for a very small corner of that world for a night. So yeah, get us to 50, make it happen.
We also have a stretch goal. A certain amount of money donated will get. I will spend the time to create a Grayson body pillow.
Yeah.
So you can snuggle your husbando.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Grayson in a maid outfit.
Yep, nice maid outfit.
I was like, it just got pillow. Really interesting in the tavern. Yep. I did not know this is the way we were going tonight.
Yep.
Yeah.
So throw money at us, and you too can have a Grayson body pillow.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm a terrible dungeon boy. I don't know what we offer on Patreon, but you know who does? Our amazing dungeon master Justine, and I am sure right now she's going to put the different tiers into the Twitch chat. Justine, hi, I love you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so definitely toss those up in the Twitch chat. We are perfectly okay with offering our community with all this. The worst part, this is serious.
We're gonna hit that body pillow goal so fast, dude.
Yeah,
way faster. Like, it's not a joke, but we're making them.
Oh, yeah, that's insane. Dylan, I will pose for it too, just for you, for your eyes only.
Oh yeah, dude.
I'd be shocked.
As bros do, you know.
That's awesome though, like, because those types of things are fun to see randomly happen, right?
Yeah, it started as a joke and then it turned to something very real, and I'm not gonna. It's horrifying for me, and a joy for everybody else. Yeah. So, you know.
Yep.
I do think it's funny though. A lot of people are like, Grayson, what, like Nightwing from Batman? Like, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Nightwing or Red X.
We'll do a Dick Grayson one too. We'll do a bootleg Dick Grayson one before Warner Bros. Shuts us down.
Right.
Off-brand
version. John Grayson.
Dark Feather. Instead of Nightwing, it's Dark Feather.
Cool Bird.
That's good. So, wow, we got on a full tangent, and I haven't even asked the other two questions. It's great. I love it. This is actually what I enjoy the most about this thing is I do not prep. For anybody that wants to know, zero prep goes into this show. This show is my most improv-based show I have because the goal is to get guests on to talk about what they're doing in the world and their projects and how we can help other people out there in D&D. And I really don't think you should have to prep for that. So that's kind of how it is. And I like rabbit holes. Problem is I like rabbit holes too much, and then I dive down it to the point where it doesn't come back for the night. So,
that's a good problem.
It is a good problem. Listen,
the feature, not a bug.
Yeah, those kind of interviews are always more interesting to me than talking about whatever we're supposed to be talking about. That being said, let's talk about what we're supposed to be talking about.
So the second question, of course, is what was the like aha moment when you found D&D? Like, what was the thing that got you to go, I want to play D&D, or this sounds cool? Like, where were you at in life, and what happened when that popped up?
I was 12 years old. I was a nerd. I think I had just had like leftover chicken scraps thrown at me in the lunchroom in middle school that day. And my best friend at the time, he was like, hey, essentially was like his like uncle or step uncle. He was like, my uncle wants to like run a D&D campaign for us. Do you want to play? I'm just like, yes, I do. I played, I want to say he was a rogue. He was like a half-elf rogue. His name was Mordred, which then I dovetailed into my next half-elf warlock character named Mordred in the next campaign I played, which then dovetailed into my next half-elf ranger character I played in the campaign after that, whose also name was Mordred. So Mordred, the half-elf, has worn many hats over the course of his
identity crisis over there for that one. It sounds like
some good mileage. Yeah, that's good.
But it I don't know, it just made me feel like I had agency at a time where I think a lot of people don't feel like they really have agency.
True, especially at that age, because you feel like everybody's trying to control you in 1,000 different ways, and you're like, I don't have any control in my life.
So I got started on like tabletop games early on, but D&D was in my early 20s. So at that point I was already, a mostly realized person.
Right.
And so the interesting thing in a creative field, so, and just starting in that field. So, being kind of zany and coming up with ideas and seeing things realized was an obsession at the time. So a friend was like, hey, I'm a DM and I just moved into town. I have no one to play with here. Do you want to try it? And I was like, can I like make up my own thing to do with that? And he's like, I guess so. You just write up the sheet and figure it out and give it to me and we'll work together. And so my first character was a monk, but he was a chef who his name was Totino Boyardi, and he was traveling the world to try to find mysterious and magical ingredients to perfect or to cook through and perfect his father's cookbook that he left behind, his like cookbook journal. And so he wanted to complete the journal and become a fully realized like magical chef guy. And totally off the rails from the start, and that's how I love to do D&D. Like with my one shots, Anthony's answer of put it on rails, I think works really well for like modules and stuff. But the way I do one shots is just homebrew and just improvise, make it up as you go, be chaotic, be fast paced. Just throw everything at the wall and then see if a story stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a one shot to do that, I'd be a little scared, because that would be the exact opposite of how I would run a one shot. I've done that a lot with just, if I'm trying to throw something together because people just want to play tonight, that's one thing, because I'm like, I don't have anything prepped. Let's just try this out. Let's see what we come up with. But for one shots where I'm planning for a 3-hour game and I want to find an ending, to say that I'm just going to throw a bunch of things at a wall and see what sticks, that's a tight task right there, because I have enough chaos goblins in my friend group that are just like, nope, we're not going to let anything stick. We're just going to try it all at once. And I was like, oh no, see how we do
I
this.
summon the Chaos Goblins, and if people aren't a Chaos Goblin, I'm back to communication. I say, hey, you should probably be a Chaos Goblin for this session if you can. If you don't want to, then we'll figure something out.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah,
we need you to,
we'll give you a moment of calm and serious to kind of bask in, but while the rest of us are doing a cartwheel contest with a Furbolg.
Yeah, if you want to see all of us be Chaos Goblins, a couple of months ago now, Grant, who plays Torash on our show, ran a one-shot called The Boy and His Modron, that is just all of us being Chaos Goblins. It took us 2.5 hours to get to the call to action.
At which point
at which point it was like, and that's the end of the stream. So,
yep.
It's pure chaos. It's literally the definition of chaos. It's insanity, and it was like the most I've laughed at a long time at that point. Dylan was one head of a two-headed dragonborn.
Yep. I was Ilgamouth, and then my other head was Tammy. I think it was Tammy, wasn't it, or Jessica?
Something like that.
Yeah, Ilgamouth.
It was like a normal name.
Yeah,
Oh,
like a random name.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, Chaos Goblins.
I forgot the original question. Sorry.
I know I just asked you what you thought your like what was that moment that you decided that D&D was like the thing to get into, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I can tie that back. Yeah, just the unfettered creativity, and then back to that sort of vulnerability that I talked about, where it's just, if you have a new group of friends, or folks you're trying to get to know, D&D is a hell of a way to do it.
It is.
You get to know each other really quick.
And it's no longer a stigma, right? That's the fun thing.
Yeah.
Like, I can walk around with a D&D shirt and get conversation now, not weird looks. Like, this is what the difference is.
I'm both happy and bitter about that as somebody who has been a long time D&D player.
I mean, I've been playing since I was like, a little tyke. But I also, and I was talking to a friend of mine, he was on the show a couple weeks ago, Heath, and he's been playing since first edition. I mean, he's got a couple years even on me. And he's the same way. He's like, dude, I love it because I go out with my wife. We start hanging, like we're walking around the town, and then I'll stop at the local bookstore. And as soon as I see somebody look, it's like instant connection. I can talk about this now, and But he's a very, open, charismatic person who enjoys. But like I said, a lot of the people that we do this with, that's what connects us, right? D&D is the opening door to figure out who a person is for a lot of us, because it's what makes us feel comfortable. Because I'm a very shy and reserved person outside of this realm. I don't.
You run a interview show, The Power of D&D, right?
The Power of D&D. I mean, 2 years ago, you never would have caught me on a camera. That's
awesome.
But yeah, now we run 2 D&D shows weekly, so it's been a weird journey, but it's been a growing journey for me personally, because I realize when I'm in my element, I can talk to people and be very social and be very interactive. When I'm not in my element, I go right back to that same person, and I'm like, this feels weird.
I feel like we're all three of us here are very similar in that regard.
Very similar on that one. But yeah. And then it was weird because when I went to Gen Con the first time, I mean, it was still 35,000 people. And I'm thinking I'm walking into an area that I'm going to feel this big. And instantly I'm like talking to random people throughout it. And I was like, this is not me. Like, what is going? Like, there's a difference in this world now, because you're in your element, right? That's the difference. And my last question that I like to ask people is, when and what got you to take the mantle of Game Master? It doesn't have to be all the time, but when you first decided, like, you know what, player's been fun. Let's try the other side of the coin and see if this works too.
I have my answer.
Sure.
If you don't, Dylan.
Go for it. I'm still percolating.
So just to get this off the bat, I don't like DMing. It is a whole other beast than just being a player.
That's the reason I get paid to do what I do.
Yeah, no,
there's a lot of
genuinely,
people that don't like DMing.
it's
So
it's hard. I mean, like DM brain is a thing. Like you get done running a session, you're just like, my brain is not going to work for the rest of the night. So like, don't try to have any kind of like meaningful conversation with me because like I can't process.
I get that as
the
a
real
player
world
sometimes
right now.
too.
Yeah, no, for sure. But it's a lot of really, really hard work. And it's not my favorite thing to do. I am running one game right now for my group of friends, and I did it really as a birthday present to my friend Kat a couple of years ago when I started this game. She and I like built like a D&D planet together, and like the main game she DMs is taking place on a continent. My game takes place on another continent. It's all interconnected. It's all like crossover storytelling. It's fun, and we have a lot of fun building that out. But then like the granular actually DMing is just like, it's like pulling teeth for me.
lore crafting is fun, but game mastering is a different monster in itself.
It's if DMing was just, or GMing was just lorecraft, I would love it, but it's not. But like it really is just because like I love my friends and they're telling a really compelling story with me, and that's like why I continue to do it and continue to put effort into running that game.
Right.
Because goddamn, it is just like I said, it's like pulling teeth.
I told this I think
for
last week or 2 weeks ago. Like when people say the DMs can get burned out, it is truly a thing. Like I tested it as a professional game master on startplaying.games for a while. And then I moved to my own personal company now. But I mean, I got all the way up to 5 games a week, and I found that I was literally going scatterbrain. And not to mention, my wife would talk to me, and I would just, I might have been drooling at the time, because I was just like, there's so much going on up here that I don't hear anything. Yeah. And I've got a wife and 4 kids, so I've got enough chaos in the house. So, and mind you, anybody that knows me, all of my D&D stuff doesn't go start until kids are in bed. So that I still have the full, but the problem is as a game master, it might not start, but you're always thinking, you're always processing, what do I need to do? When you're running 5 campaigns and 4 of them are in different worlds, it was a bad mistake on me as a game master. Like, trust me, I learned where my limit was. I immediately shut down 3, and I was like, I can deal with 2. I'm good. I'm going to do 2 a week. And then I started up the stream, and that was 3, and I said, and we're done. I'm not doing anymore. I can't do this.
Yeah, I imagine redundancy, like finding ways to reuse old work or like reuse old ideas and things. Yeah, I mean, I think that the shorthand I bet that you've come up with is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, no, it's definitely helped. But you still, I guess it's the perfectionist in me is like, I still want to put on a good story to everyone and not reuse. Yeah. And for a while there, I was definitely that person. I was like, no, I have to have a different story that is pumping out to each player. And no, at this point, I'm like, if I can use this here and just twist it a little bit, and I can use this here and twist it a little bit, I'll do that more so because they've never played that scenario. Their characters are going to play it differently. We're going to see a different outcome no matter if I have the exact same mentality on it. The outcomes are always different because players are different, right? That's the wonders of playing multiple games, either in the same world or, truthfully, I believe even in the same module, you would get completely different outcomes no matter where you're at. So, 5 a week, mixed.
That
3 weeks is all it took.
Yeah, that sounds way too many.
I was looking at doing it as a full-time job type thing. I was calculating what it would cost me to how many games I'd have to run and all that fun stuff, and I was just like, nope. I'd rather do the stream thing, the creative side of it. If for some reason in the world of D&D this thing would grow to be something amazing, that's one thing. I would personally want to do the same thing that people like Matt Mercer would do, where I'm working in one stream. I'm working one story. I'm not working 3 to 4 groups. I'm working one story that I can tell it's a focused effort.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Question from the Dungeon Boys. What is your favorite part of creating a character? I mean, we are supposed to be talking about character development tonight. This was kind of the focus of the game, of this story, because both of you are players. I didn't know both of you had a lot of experience dungeon mastering too, but I was given I was informed that I was getting 2 players from the Dungeon Boys, so I should, I guess, be picking your brains as players.
Sure. I like coming up with names, which is like a weird answer for like, what's your favorite part of making a character? But I genuinely, I feel like I need to preface this. I am about to compare myself to J.R.R. Tolkien, but let's all be clear, I am not anywhere near J.R.R. Tolkien, and I don't think I am. But in the sense that he came up with names and then came up with stories for those names, and lineages for those names, and languages for those names. That's very much how I approach building a character, and also storytelling at large. Like if there's a cool name or a meaningful name, it's easier for me to figure out who that person is.
Yeah. I mean, names are the hardest thing for me. But if I catch a name that really resonates with me, that character will I'll build a character off of it, because I'm so bad with names. Like, I'm that person, straight out, I will have a generator open, and I will go through that generator probably 70 times before I'm like, oh, that name sounds cool, let me move that one over here, let me move that one over here. Now, mind you, after playing now I've been playing since 2002, I've been playing. I have a large list of those names that I reuse all the time now, but
of course.
But at the beginning and even till today, I'm like, I need a Dragonborn name. Okay, random fantasy generator name. Hit that button, hit that button, hit that button, hit that button 70 times, and then finally I find one that sounds like it's something I would actually use for a character.
I like either playing with contradictions, like my Warforged monk in Stardust Echoes. Playing with a contradiction is interesting. Like, what would that kind of a guy be like? Somebody who's,
Can you elaborate? What do you mean by a contradiction?
Contradiction meaning contradiction in the face of, like, stereotypical, like Warforged barbarian, Warforged fire, big machine, big strong guy. Instead, he's a very sensitive, very demure, monk. So what is that like? Yeah, and alive, and spiritual and introspective, an introspective robot, right? Which isn't obviously a new trope, but it was interesting to me.
Yeah, but it'd be interesting to play around with. Yeah.
So contradictions are interesting to me, and then I also like looking at characters in fiction that I just adore and would like to emulate. So one of the ones that I really want to play is a druid modeled after Sparrowhawk from Tales from Earthsea, or from the Earthsea series from Ursula Le Guin's work. Interesting takes on a class. I like just taking things and kind of turning them on their head a little bit. Like, we always think of druids as being just draped in ivy and just these, naturalist characters. But what if they're a really down-to-earth, serious, almost wizard-like character? Yeah. But druid,
right.
It's that sort of thing.
We played I have a friend of mine who, the way you're talking, like, I feel like he's sitting right behind me, and I'm listening to the same thing. My friend Curtis, who's never been on the show, and he's never been on our stream or anything like that, but a local friend of mine who I run a lot of my D&D ideas by, and whatnot. In one of the games that we played together, he brought a druid in, and this was some, like, stinky, smelly, almost like troll-like character, but he was playing a halfling. Had mushrooms growing on him, and it was like, everybody thinks of the good, great versions of druids, and then he brought this just nasty character in.
Yeah, sweet.
but
It's like Radagast, you know?
like Radagast on like, you know, if he didn't shower for a long time. But like literally he would, like a lot of his spells, he would grab mushrooms off of his cloak, or he would, you know, pick up dirt and smudge it into his hands and use that kind of thing. He never did things the normal way, or he would go feral, you know, what's that, primal savagery, and just grow out nails and just dive on people, and it's like
foaming a little bit, and
foam a little bit in the mouth,
and
it was definitely an interesting idea that I was like, wow, I don't think I ever would have thought about that. So anytime I need a very unique character, he's usually the guy I go to, and I was like, hey man, this is what I'm thinking, and he's like, did you think about it this way or this way? I was like, no, of course I didn't. So let me rewrite down some of this stuff, and then I can work through it a little bit more. But yeah, no, that's like I said, my buddy Curtis, out to you, buddy.
Oh man.
So, I like the contradiction idea. I think that's an interesting thing, and
the like Oathbreaker paladins, like just out of the box, that's already interesting. Like you think of a high and mighty goody two shoes, but he's, you know, he's broken his oath, or you know, it was broken out from under him, and he's got to deal with it. So you can go with like the wandering Ronin kind of thing. You can go with the you know,
I think
Lich
that one
King
gets a
kind
bad
of thing.
rep. Truthfully, I think that one gets a bad rep though, because when you think Oathbreaker, you have to go with which oath they're breaking, right?
Yeah.
And if you read the Oathbreaker Paladin like class mechanically, it's just a mean, like an evil paladin, like really. Yeah. And I'm like, but it doesn't have to be evil, like, you know.
I like, speaking of contradictions, contradicting the book, the source material.
I mean, so
yeah,
like talking about Oathbreaker Paladin, like the one that comes to mind as a character I got to play once a while ago, but it was a drow paladin of conquest who served Lolth, the spider goddess, who then broke his oath as a paladin of Lolth because he realized that, like, hey, like, the drow culture actually is terrible and violent, and I should work against that. And so it's just like, it's technically an Oathbreaker paladin, but he's not breaking his oath in a horrific, vile warrior way, and kind of change of heart. I'm gonna, you know,
I think it's interesting,
like Zuko, for lack of a better term.
Paladins are. I love the way that they changed paladins in 5th edition, because they changed it from being always having to be lawful good, unless you broke your oath. And it was like, no. What about if I was an Oath of the Crown, you know, and I just didn't want to be Daddy's next victim, you know? What about if that was then I'm an Oathbreaker still, because I'm not taking up the crown next time.
Or you have an Oath of Glory who decides that I just kind of want to farm.
Yeah,
I'm a farm paladin.
I want to be simple. Or, you know, I do Oath of Glory, and you're like, actually, the simple life is a lot more safer. You know,
But you get all the dark, twisted mechanics as you till the earth.
An Oath of the Ancients paladin who decides that, you know, the world is moving on and it's time to embrace modernity and change.
Yeah,
it's an
Oathbreaker.
Yeah,
right.
You
know, I also think it's funny to play. I tell this a lot of times because a lot of people like to use the trope of, you know, the hex, or the warlock paladin mix. And I always think it's interesting to think of, depending on which one comes first, things can be very, very different. If you were a paladin first, and you were, let's say, even if you were a paladin of vengeance, and you took on an oath with an archfey or something of chaos, would you technically still be a paladin of vengeance or not? So I mean, then you can immediately flip that as well and think of how that would go through.
Leave it to the patrons to figure it out. Let them duke it out over you. Let them earn your love. That's how I play it.
Yeah, I would too.
If the DM would let me.
I love playing. I love watching people and how they play that combined feeling, right? Because you're technically playing it's a bad way to say this, but you're technically playing mom against dad, really, because it's like you have a deity that you're worshiping to get your divine energy from. You also have a strange creature you're worshiping to get your warlock energy from, and who you pull from more often could potentially, story-wise, affect what happens. So
a fun one to do as well is have like a paladin warlock like sibling pair. Where they both have the same parent, but like the paladin is the one who constantly has to prove themselves to like their essentially, their mom or their dad.
Right.
And then the one who's a warlock, because they have like the divine power warlock now, is just like the favorite and just gets to have their powers
just gets
because
it's always the first one. Or the youngest,
so that's
it's the baby.
Exactly. It's just like you're just doted upon. You just get your powers. This other one has like work really hard for it, and so.
Yeah, I think I love the contradictions and stuff, and they can quickly like devolve into jokes, like an unintelligent wizard, and I faking it with all of their spells kind of thing. And that kind of gets back to the one shot versus campaign thing, where if I'm choosing a player or a character based on the form factor of the thing I'm playing in. If it's a one shot, I'm doing something dumb.
Yeah.
I'm doing something ridiculous that, is going to crash and burn for sure. For a campaign, it's got to be something I want to occupy for a while. So Temple is one that I want to occupy because there's a lot to unpack with that kind of a contradiction. Questions immediately out of the gate at first 4 or 5 episodes were like, are you even a living thing? Like, are you a person? Like, what are you really? Well, and that's compelling.
Not to give too much spoilers for Dungeon Boys, but like the one we just recorded where we essentially like took the brakes off of an AI and made it into a full person, and there's like a weird moral debate about whether or not we should do that.
And how it was like maybe
but look
not
at
okay.
Temple. It's just like, that's a good point, I guess. Yeah,
it's not okay for you, but it's okay for them.
Yeah. So I think that's just because of Temple existing creates those spaces in this campaign, and otherwise I don't think we would even think about. So
contradictions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Does anybody else have any questions in the chat? These are some good questions. Like I said, this is why I love this show. This is where I get my ideas. This is where I help other people get their ideas.
That's great. Any questions about D&D, life, in and out? Pacific Northwest.
I haven't been there
since
2016.
Good spitball tavern names.
Yeah, we spitball some tavern names, toss them up.
Flea.
Favorite part of socialism.
My favorite part of socialism.
Oh.
Dylan, I can talk ad nauseum about this.
Yeah. We could.
Also, do you have an In-N-Out burger in Portland?
It's not in Portland. It's in Kaiser, which is about 40-ish miles south of Portland. It's a city right above Salem. But we are getting one in Beaverton. Is that correct?
That place is gonna melt. It's gonna get so much attention.
Yeah. There is one that they're building much closer, because right now it's about like an hour drive out of the way to go to In-N-Out, which I do because I'm insane.
But you got the shirt.
Yeah. So Valiant Odyssey trumped the channel with a highlighted question. Says, what character were you thinking of playing if you didn't play Temple and Valen?
Ooh,
like what race, class, combo, flavor would you have chose?
That is a great question.
Valiant, I play Grayson, not Matt.
This has been Grayson's mouth minute. I would just go through. I have a Google Doc of again contradictions, just weird ideas that are interesting to explore. But we have a running joke that if we get a total party wipe, we're all going to roll just the manliest, just most masculine, ridiculous characters we can.
Yeah, just
so that there's just
beefcakes,
tons of chest bumping and like high fives and tight shorts.
We're doing JoJo poses. It's gonna be great.
It'll basically be a JoJo's adventure. Yeah, just constant, just flexing and posing.
Yeah.
So probably some Minotaur, ripped turtle.
Goliath. Get Goliath in there.
Yep.
For me, I've actually been thinking about this, particularly like if the horrible event Grayson dies. I would probably play a rogue artificer multi-class as like a hacker. So that keeping with like the sci-fi theme, just kind of being like a slicer or a hacker, and I figured like doing like a rogue, probably the thief subclass, and then artificer combined can do like a cool sci-fi hacker.
That would be cool.
So that would probably be my alt for the start of
in what race?
Ooh, I haven't thought about that far ahead. Probably something wacky. I tend to play the more like human looking like races whenever I play D&D, so like either a human or half elf or an elf, or that's it really, but I don't know, maybe a halfling.
I was gonna say halfling gnome type.
Yeah, halfling probably just so I can reroll ones, which is a very metagame reason to play a halfling, but like it's a great reason to play a halfling.
Yeah, I mean, can't beat out the halfling lucky, man. That's wonderful.
I think I'd want to play something that is a departure from what I'm doing now, because I'm trying to play a very wise and level character. I think I'd want to go something chaotic or something opposite of that. So I played a Kenku for a very long time. Kenku Storm Sorcerer. It'd be fun to pilot that little guy again. I miss him. Yeah. His name was like a magical poof sound.
Yeah,
they just called him Poof.
Nice.
Oh yeah, Kenku.
All right, so
we didn't do the mimicry thing though, because that got really exhausting. So it was the backstory was that he had spent a lot of time with very verbose people and picked up the lexicon.
Yeah, Kenku is.
It's just ridiculous.
They're so much fun, but they're so miserable sometimes. You're just like, I've put NPCs as Kenkus, and I use them very, very sporadically because of that reason. Mimicry can get annoying as heck. You're just like,
oh yeah,
I have to think through this. Like, what have you heard in your life, and what have you not heard in your life? So current characters. This comes from Rick Rocks. As your current characters, what is your theme song and catchphrase?
Oh shit.
So we actually put together Spotify playlists, tight 10 tracks that define your character. So we have half of that answer solved. Let me pull that up.
I know. I'm like, did I actually end up making mine? I don't know if I did. Let me open Spotify really fast.
Uh-oh, somebody's getting caught.
Listen.
I feel you.
I did make one.
I don't have a lot of time.
Oh, I would do The Girl and the Robot by Royksop.
Okay. I would do I'm Still Here, aka the theme song from Treasure Planet, as written and sung by the guy from Goo Goo Dolls. That feels very Grayson.
I think that tracks.
Yeah. Either that or Fortunate Son by the Creedence Clearwater Revival, because that just also kind of feels fitting.
Right. And catchphrases.
Catchphrases.
Temple's nothing but catchphrases.
Yeah, Grayson has two. One is just a heavy sigh, which was pointed out to me when Justine was texting my beautiful, wonderful, gorgeous, amazing, sexy partner Lindsay, who plays Six on the show. She was texting Lindsay, and she was like, "We should make a drinking game for the Dungeon Boys. Whenever Grayson sighs, everybody needs to take a shot." And it was like she had one for like every one of the characters. But then I looked at Lindsay, I'm just like, do I sigh that much? And she's like, oh yeah.
Like, part of your character though, it's just this dry, like, oh god damn it.
Yeah. The other one is Let's Get Off of This Godforsaken Rock, which now that spoilers for Stardust Echoes, now that we have gotten off of that Godforsaken Rock, I need to find another catchphrase.
Get another catchphrase. All right.
I think for Temple, I think the serious one, or the like a honest answer is let go or be dragged. I think that one kind of cuts to his whole thing. Yeah, I think that there was another one. I speaking of Google Docs earlier for character ideas, I also have a bunch of Templeisms saved. Oh, it's escaping me. I can't find it. But that's a bit of prep that I do. Is I make sure to have some phrases locked and loaded, and then I just kind of casually browse them as things are happening. And it's like, oh, that fits right there. I'm gonna make Grayson sigh. It's gonna be awesome.
I'm gonna make Grayson sigh. This is amazing. It's beautiful. So, how much do you all work together with the other players when building characters?
Zero, none.
Yeah,
at least, yeah, at least for this, the only character I knew going into this was Six, was Lindsay's characters, because we lived together.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to, not talk about it. But I had no idea who anybody else was playing or what anybody else was playing, really, until I think the day before we recorded our first episode.
Yeah. I think there was some broad conversation about balance a little bit, but not too much. It was kind of whatever you guys want to roll with, we'll figure it out. The balance was more about roles that we would occupy in the story as a team. That was sort of, but even that was sort of after the fact, okay, we have this group who makes sense to be what. Yeah, and similarly,
Balance, the archaeologist, Six was the hired muscle, Grayson was the chief security officer,
peacekeeper, Temple, yeah. And then Pants was a stowaway. Yeah, so yeah, not applicable. Yeah, similarly, the only character I knew about going in was Pants, because Ellie and I are married.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently there's a lot of people on here that did not realize either of you were connected to those two people.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
which is amusing. But at the same time, for anybody that has not watched the newest episode of Critical Role, there was a moment on there when Travis is flipping out that Laura's character could do something. He's like, I didn't even know that, and I live with you for this. I was like, yeah, this is kind of what happens, right?
Cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I have my oldest kid. He plays D&D with me all the time, and sometimes he's like, you've been plotting that this entire time? He's like, how did I not know? I was like, I'm not going to tell you crap. I'm the game master. You're a player. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
No privileges.
You don't get those privileges.
Sit down.
I've had, it's funny, kind of going off of that, I've had private conversations with Justine where I accidentally have guessed plot points to Stardust Echoes. Yeah. So.
But as long as but I think, at least from what I can tell, you both have the ability to not use that against people as well. Because even if I guess the plot point to a story that a friend of mine's running, my character is not going to figure this out the same way. So I have to figure out how that's going to work. I mean, through.
To the point where at the table, it's not something I've done at Stardust Echoes yet. I haven't really had an opportunity to, or the opportunity has presented itself to. But in home games I play, where Anthony, the person, has put 2 and 2 together, but it doesn't necessarily mean the character has put 2 and 2 together. I'll just genuinely just make an intelligence roll, just straight intelligence, to see if my character would piece it together.
Yeah, that's a good way to get around that.
Yeah, and if the roll is below, whatever threshold I set or the DM sets, then no. So Anthony's just okay, well, that you can't go off of that.
I figured it out, but we'll figure out. I've got to put more pieces together in story.
It gets to the kind of the heart of why the player's playing, right? Because if you're trying to win, then metagaming all day long, right? All day long, you're going to be a little stinker about it. But I think our crew is pretty good about playing out a story, and we're winning if we played along well.
Right. And I think a lot of times when people, especially when this is a conversation that I've had with a lot of people on here, is the whole idea of, metagaming and railroading. Mm. If your players are coming to listen to go through a story, and everybody's on the same page of going through a story, you're not going to feel railroaded, even if you are being railroaded, because everybody's goal is still to tell that story. Which I think at that point you're on bumpers. You know, if this was a bowling alley, you're on bumpers. You're not fully being driven, because your reactions and your dice rolls and all that stuff can change that. But the direction you're going, y'all are in the same, you're all in the same boat going forward. So yeah, I agree.
Tropes are cool. I mean, they're shorthand. Bowling alley is a great analogy. It's like, I know where the ball's going.
Yeah, exactly.
This is bowling. We're bowling right now. This is the trope.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it.
Mod Brew, because I feel bad that we haven't caught. Everybody's been talking while we've been jabbering along, which is fine because it's kind of how this whole thing works. Yeah. But I want to get back to Mod Brew because, I'm trying not to miss questions, and we're already at an hour and a half, which I'm okay with. The chat's still popping. I can go for about another 15 minutes, and then we got to close down because the tavern doesn't stay open past 11. Just how it works.
You have to go home, but
everybody's got to go home.
Yeah.
Kiss the wife and kids goodnight and go to sleep.
Yeah.
That's how this works.
Yeah.
So how did you go about planning and recording your flashbacks and solo parts of an episode? Did you record them separately or in front of the party? And were you aware of each other's flashbacks?
Separately.
Yeah.
Almost all of them, I think, are separate.
The very first time we did logs, which are separate from the flashbacks, we did them all in the same recording. But that was the only time we ever did that. That was the very first time we did logs.
We deafened Discord too, so we were basically separate anyway.
Yes,
so,
except for my Discord wouldn't deafen for whatever reason, so I heard all of them.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because the deafen wasn't working for me for whatever reason, so I just sat there just like, I can hear everything.
Dude,
I know it all.
Awesome. I'm the keeper of secrets.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah, they're for the flashbacks. It's
I think it's just a unique exercise for everyone because I think everyone tackles it a little bit differently. I write a full outline based on the backstory, and then I flesh it out with dialogue or whatever the case may be, and just take a handful of takes at it. I type up a thing to Justine, who's DM but also our editor. Just saying, I've kind of flubbed here. This is kind of what I'm thinking for that, and the rest is have fun and go nuts.
For me, it's always Justine gives us a pretty solid deadline. Like it's about 2 or 3 weeks for like a deadline to turn something like that around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I wait until the very last minute where I'll get a reminder message from her being like, hey, you're the only one who hasn't sent me this. Do it now because I'm editing the episode. And then very panicked, I'm like, oh God. And I just kind of word vomit into a microphone. And it has worked out for me every time so far.
It's your creative process, dude.
Yeah.
Gives Justine panic attacks.
You just kind of, you and I are probably at a very similar mentality because a lot of my time, I try to prep as much as possible, but the most prep I get done is like 30 minutes to an hour before a game because I'm in crunch time, right? Like that's all of the procrastination has dropped finally, and we're at the final round, and it's time for me to put out the final product.
That's the woozy goose for me. I have the bone. I have the bones of the story, but I want to do like maps and art and
so
it'll be fantastic.
Artwork, it's free. You can make your own. It's kind of neat. Mid-Journey is the AI system. It's $10 a month. It's can't really beat it.
I will beat it.
I mean, you can do it.
I'm going to watch me.
John Henry versus the AI machine.
Exactly.
I don't have that kind of money to support the small artists, sadly, for stuff like that.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I will. Trust me. I paid for all of our artwork for Plots in Darkenhaven. We paid for all the artworks for all of our other shows so far for characters. But when you're a stream who's trying to produce artwork consistently all the time.
It's tongue in cheek. I totally
it's sad. No, trust me. If we continue to grow, I would love to have a 2-3 person artist crew that I could be like, here's a couple $100. I need this, and this, and that's it, and go with just those people. That's why normally when we do character artwork, I go with the same artist for all the characters because I want that feel to look exactly the same. And I'm trying to figure out how to do that same thing with AI, so I just have to name certain things the same way so that it looks somewhat the same. This was my first test, so lanterns and tavern, and I was like, oh, this is kind of neat.
We really lucked out in the Dungeon Boys because we have two phenomenal artists in both Justine, our DM, and Dylan, who provide
that's definitely a luck
art
there.
and
graphic
design.
That's a luxury there for sure.
No, it really is. I mean, the reason why all like the
cry here in a second. I can see him tearing up. He's starting to turn red. He's like, Annabelle.
No, he's a big reason why like all the branding stuff for the Dungeon Boys looks as professional and good as it does is because he is a professional at this stuff, and we are lucky to have him.
Justine does 90% of more than 90% of the art, though. It's just the occasional social media blast and logo thing I do. But it's a lot
of work. It's a lot of work for one person, and you guys seem to have a great team of just working through it, which you can't beat it. You know, the team is where you go from being a normal everyday stream to an amazing stream, because that's what in not TikTok, reading channels at the same time and trying to talk, and I'm starting to speak up words that are there. An amazing podcast because you have that wonderful team behind you. Just because just because I'm the face of the stream, this stream doesn't mean that this stream goes off by myself. I have a tech guy who does all of the pre-stuff to set me up from all this stuff. And all I do is log in, hit start, set up the guests, and I'll go. That's all I do for this show. Everybody else takes care of this show for me, which is phenomenal. One of our tech guy, actually, he hasn't even been on stream since our first show. He stepped completely away from the stream for a little while, and he's just doing our tech now. And
what's tech guy's name?
Thank you, Eric. Eric's amazing.
Shout out to Eric.
Shout out to Eric.
You're the MVP.
That's right. You are the MVP because you help us out so much. So definitely love you, buddy. And like I said, our social media, all that stuff, can't be, full-time job right there if I actually had.
Oh man, social media is a black hole, dude. Yeah, there's no end to what you could do with social media. It's just like good enough is good enough. Leave well enough alone.
I keep
if it blows up, it blows up. If it doesn't blow up, it doesn't blow up. You just kind of accept it. Keep moving.
I keep threatening to take over the Dungeon Boys Twitter account and just start posting just fucking batshit wild things in the hope that one of them goes viral, but nobody's gonna let me.
The first socialist diatribe would be cute, but the second one.
That's why you slap on Dungeon Boys Anthony, create your own Twitter, and just blam it out until something hits, and then you link it back to the main stuff.
I already have my own personal Twitter in which all my unhinged thoughts just come out word vomit style until they're no longer considered mine. They're just out in the void.
Out in the void of the world.
Yeah.
Well, do you wonderful gentlemen have any questions or anything you'd like to say for the evening?
Dungeon Boys, the Dungeon Boys, the first campaign, Stardust Echoes, is currently 14 episodes deep. So if you want something with a little bit of a backlog to kind of sink your teeth into, definitely check us out. We are on Spotify. We are on the RSS feed. We are on, I think, pretty much everywhere you can get or listen to podcasts. And you can find us at the Dungeon Boys on Twitter and Instagram.
We want to thank you for having us on and giving us a chance to talk about games and the stuff that we care so much about together. It's been really fun.
Yeah,
definitely.
Totally.
And if you all can make it out in February, there's a small D&D convention out in Colorado Springs called Genghis Con, 23rd through the 26th. Y'all can make it out there. I'll be out there with a bunch of the Tabletop Misfits, and we'll be running games with the company that we mostly do our writing with, which is GUI Cube. They're a main company out there in Colorado. So super excited to see. Hopefully, if anybody else wants to come hang out with us, we'll be out there. I'll be rocking my Misfits hoodie because but it might not be. I don't know. It depends on if it's 16 degrees or if it's 30 degrees out there.
You said February in Colorado Springs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pack two hoodies.
Yeah, I got off the plane. I left Virginia where I'm at 75 degrees and got off the plane at 16 degrees, and I was like, this is not what I wanted in life.
Yeah.
And then took the the journey up to Pikes Peak, and the day or two after the con, and found out what real cold was in the middle of nowhere in the mountains, and I was like, this is not anything I ever want to do again.
Yeah.
I'll do it again, but I won't do it like that.
Sure, yeah, for sure.
Have I considered living in Australia? Me and Valiant are here, and it's pretty awesome. I just had for the evening, we didn't hit our goal. It's just 20 followers or 20 people in channel. So we'll continue to rotate that out to the next show. When we hit 20 followers, 20 additional followers, we will offer up a $15 gift card or 15% gift card off of our friends' stuff over at projecth2.au. So our friends down in Australia, they made me this wonderful gift I showed off last week. So support your...
Ooh.
So this is a...
Dang.
Oh, I vanished.
Disappeared.
Yeah, I disappeared. And
That's pretty.
There we go. So it's a dice vault.
Nice.
It's a character vault. Open it up. It's pretty. So
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So
That's
yeah.
super
Good work.
cool.
That's cool.
Yeah,
So
that's rad.
our friend Jack down there sent me that as a gift for bringing him on the show, and also he gave us 4 cards to give away as we hit some of our goals. Starting next week, hopefully we'll have our trackers up that'll actually show when these goals are met, and we'll start launching those up as we continue to grow. Also, that can mark off if we hit 20 followers on Patreon. We're also going to give away a card. So we're trying to move everything to Patreon so that we can continue to give cool stuff away.
Oh yeah.
So
Hell yeah.
Right on. Well, cool.
for everybody who's been here this entire time, go check out the Dungeon Boys on all of your social medias and all of the podcasts. Keep an eye out for their Twitch channels, for their one-shots and their crazy antics that they do there. If you're interested in something outside of D&D, this weekend and next weekend we're going to be doing a 2-part series for the Alien RPG, and that's going to be with a bunch of the Misfits, and then our special guest is the podcast DM for Knights and Nerds, Tim. He's going to join us for the 2-shot, I guess is what we're going to call it. And then starting in November, this is the big project that's been worked on now for about 2 months, and we're ready to finally release it. We are going to be doing a 3-month series in the world of Tolkien. So there and back yet again will be a One Ring RPG adventure that is going to be ran with their system, and I'll be running it, and we have wonderful people. We have Phil from Last Game Board, and we have almost all of the Misfits joining us, and we also have our wonderful artist Brina, who's going to come in as her own player. So we're super excited to have her and Phil to join us, and we're going to be doing that up until February, which then will show off our next project at Genghis Khan in February when we arrive. So
Looking forward to
check
that.
us
That
out.
sounds cool.
9
Yeah, for
p.m.
sure.
every week on Wednesdays and on Sundays. We are here on Twitch. Next week we have Jeff. Oh, nope. My brain stopped. 1 second. Got to do this because otherwise I feel bad when I don't. Jason Duff. He is the creator of Heroes and Hardships, a universal RPG game system that is currently on Kickstarter right now. So we're going to talk about his Kickstarter, see what's going on over there, and find out how his stuff is making people's lives easier in D&D. So until then, this is Last Call. The tavern is closed. We'll see you guys all next week for episode 67 of Tavern Talks. Have a good night.
Night.
Bye.